Welcome to How to Retire on Time, a show that answers your questions about all things retirement, including income, taxes, Social Security, healthcare, and more. This show is an extension of the book, How to Retire on Time, which you can grab today on Amazon or by going to www.howtoretireontime.com. My name is Mike Decker. I'm the author of the book, How to Retire on Time, but I'm also a licensed financial advisor, insurance agent, and tax professional, which means when it comes to financial topics, we can pretty much cover it all. Now, that said, please remember this is just a show. Everything you hear should be considered informational, as in not financial advice. If you want personalized financial advice, then request your wealth analysis from my team today by going to www.yourwealthanalysis.com. With me in the studio today is Mr. David Franson. David, thank you for being here.
Yes, glad to be here.
David's going to be reading your questions, and I'm going to do my best to answer them. You can send your questions in right now to 913-363-1234. Once again, that's 913-363-1234, or email them to heymike@howtoretireontime.com. Let's begin.
Hey, Mike, do pensions affect when I file for Social Security?
Depends. This is actually a pretty good question because it's a more technical tax question.
Okay, yeah.
So if you don't know, Social Security, if you file for Social Security before full retirement age, for most people right now, that's around 67 years old, that above, I think it's $21,400, somewhere around there, any W-2 or 1099 income that is above that 21,000 threshold, every $2 above deducts $1 from your Social Security benefit. Now, it's not, let's say, David, you're still working and your bride has retired.
Okay.
It's on an individual basis, not a household basis. So
right.
if you retired, you could take your Social Security. It depends on your Social Security and your income. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there are multiple ways that a pension can come. For many people, it comes in the form of a 1099-R. R means retirement. R basically tells the IRS, hey, it's okay, he's retired.
Oh, all right.
All right. But when you dive into the alternative space, when you dive into, you're like a partner, let's say, you're a part owner of a firm, of a business or something like that, and it's structured differently, you might not get the 1099-R with your pension. You might get a K-1.
Oh.
And a K-1, typically in the form of a pension, K-1, is going to be counted as active income, as if you were still working. And so for those that have higher pensions, under the K-1 structure, yeah, you might get dinged with your Social Security. So I would bet not bet my bottom dollar, but I would be willing to bet something. I don't know, maybe a can of this beverage I'm enjoying during the show, that most people listening right now had no idea that was a situation.
Yeah.
That according to the tax code, depending on how you receive your pension may affect your Social Security. It's not as black and white as people would suggest. And so if you were to retire, let's say at 60 years old, and let's say you've got a K-1 coming in and you wanted to take Social Security at 62, you might wonder, well, why isn't it not coming in? Maybe your K-1 pension's just too high. And that could create a tax issue, by the way, and all sorts of other issues. So, and this is kind of the tip of the iceberg too when it comes to Social Security planning. You've got to understand, one, your tax situation. So that's the 1040 here. We're diving into what are you being taxed? What are the investments? How are they done there? Do you have LLCs? Do you have limited partnerships? Do you have things that could disrupt your Social Security or not? And then do you understand your benefits? Are you married? Are you single? Are you a survivor, a widow, or a widower? Are we going to optimize those benefits? So you're going to take your, let's say, widow or widower benefit first, the survivor benefit, and then let your benefit grow? Are you going to, if you're married, are you going to have your benefit at 67 years old and your spouse at their full retirement age? Are you going to wait till 70? Do you understand that if you delay to 70, your spousal benefit can't start until you file for Social Security? I mean, there's all sorts of nuance here that needs to be explored if you want to be efficient with your money, if you want to get more out of your hard-earned money. Because Social Security is complicated. And I'm saying that as a National Social Security Advisor, which, by the way, is an educational credential. I don't actually represent the Social Security Administration. I just had to basically pass a very difficult exam to prove that I knew what I was talking about with Social Security. So anyway, here's the gist. If I were to wrap up the Social Security conversation, yes, first understand your tax situation. then optimize your benefit, because it's not about getting the most out of Social Security. It's about how do you utilize Social Security to elevate your overall plan. When you file, this is an expression I came up years ago, but when you file too early, your income could be hurting. But if you file too late, you could be hurting your estate. So all things being equal, if you file at, let's say you retire at 60 years old and you file at 62, okay, well, that's an earlier benefit. So you're taking less income from your portfolio because you've got Social Security income. But if you retired at, let's say, 60 years old and you delayed your benefit until 70, that's 10 years. You've got to kind of bridge that gap. So that means what, you're taking more from your estate, your portfolio, which means if you were to pass sooner than expected, you might have less to pass.
Right.
So there's always a trade. There's always a benefit and detriment. Which one are you okay with? How do you blend the available strategies? What's more important to you? Maximizing your income with the expectation you might live a longer life? Is it preservation? And then also you have to understand too, it's not as black and white as, well, I want this, so it just obviously is going to be XYZ. No, how are you invested in your portfolio? Because it might be that you are willing to be more aggressive in your portfolio than your average retiree. And so it might make sense to file Social Security earlier on so your portfolio has more growth potential. But there's risk associated with that. I mean, do you see how just the situations, one after the next, after the next, after the next can happen?
Right.
It's a complex situation. There's a ripple effect. When you file, will have a ripple effect on your taxes and your tax planning, on your portfolio, on your growth, on your legacy. It just, everything's connected to everything. So yeah, Social Security is not as simple as people think.
Right.
That's just a fun rant kind of on what it looks like. But here's how you solve it. You don't go online and just get an isolated Social Security report that says, based on how long I think I'm going to live, this is how I can get the most money out of Social Security. That's the wrong way to go about it. The right way, in my opinion, is to run an actual comprehensive review of everything and say, okay, if I were to file for Social Security at 62, how does it affect everything else? What's the big picture? If I were to file at 67 or 70, how does it affect everything else? If time is our most precious commodity and money is intended to serve us, then how do we get the most out of it? That's the right question. And the only way to do that, in my opinion, is to run a holistic and comprehensive plan, review the options, see what happens with this ripple effect, and then make a decision based on your lifestyle and legacy objectives. That's all the time we've got for the show today. If you enjoyed the show, consider subscribing to it wherever you get your podcast. Just search for How to Retire on Time. Discover if your portfolio is built to weather flat market cycles, or if you're missing tax minimization opportunities that you may not even know exist. Explore strategies that may be able to help you lower your overall risk while potentially increasing your overall growth and lifestyle flexibility. This is not your ordinary financial analysis. Learn more about Your Wealth Analysis and what it could do for you regardless of your age, asset, or target retirement date. Go to www.yourwealthanalysis.com today to learn more and get started.